In the increasingly crowded landscape of prestige television thrillers, it can be difficult for a new series to stand out. Yet All Her Fault manages to carve out its own identity with layered mystery, strong performances, and a central twist that reframes everything the audience thought they knew. Based on the 2021 novel by Andrea Mara, the limited series transforms what initially appears to be a straightforward missing child drama into something far darker and morally complicated. While the show has some uneven elements, particularly stylistic choices like its overpowering score, it ultimately succeeds as a gripping and emotionally complex thriller. The series was even nominated for a Golden Globe in the category for Best Limited Series, a recognition that reflects both its ambition and strong ensemble cast. The story centers around Marissa Irvine, played here by Snook, best known for her Emmy Award-winning role in Succession. Marissa is successful, self-made wealth manager living an affluent life in suburban Chicago. Her world, though, collapses when her young son Milo disappears after a routine playdate. What initially seems like a kidnapping quickly spirals into a labyrinth of secrets, lies, and competing narratives about what really happened. The central question becomes deceptively simple. Who is responsible for Milo's disappearance? The story introduces several potential suspects, including nanny Carrie Finch, who becomes the focal point of the suspicion. As the investigation unfolds, the series gradually reveals that the situation is far more complicated than anyone initially believed. Now, there is no denying that Snook is an outstanding actress. Her portrayal of Shiv Roy in Succession established her as one of the most formidable performers of her generation. However, casting her as the vulnerable mother at the heart of All Her Fault creates an interesting challenge. Snook excels at playing sharp, ruthless, morally ambiguous characters. She has a natural intensity and emotional steel that made Shiv Roy such a compelling presence. Here, as Marissa Irvine, she is required to channel a more sympathetic and fragile energy. While she delivers a strong performance, there are moments where the role feels slightly at odds with her screen persona. It can sometimes be difficult to fully buy her as the desperate, emotionally unraveling mother at the center of the crisis. That said, though, Snook still anchors the series effectively, and as the truth slowly emerges about the Irvine family, her performance begins to make more sense within the larger narrative. For me, though, the true standout performance of the series comes from Jake Lacey as Marissa's husband, Peter Irvine. Initially, Peter appears to be a supportive husband and a concerned father, a man trying to keep his family together amid a devastating tragedy. Lacey plays him with an understated charm that makes him seem sympathetic and even likable at first. But as the story unfolds, the facade begins to crack. Peter is revealed to be deeply controlling, manipulative, and increasingly sinister. His need to dominate and control those around him becomes the psychological engine driving the entire plot. By the time the series reaches its major twist, Peter is exposed as the architect of the story's central crime. He stole Milo after the Irvine's biological child died, taking the baby from another mother during a traumatic accident. Lacey's slow transformation from sympathetic spouse to chilling antagonist is one of the most compelling elements of the whole show. Another major highlight is Sofia Lillis, who plays Josephine Murphy, also known as Carrie Finch. Her character is initially introduced as a troubled nanny accused of kidnapping Milo. Earlier episodes frame her as unstable, potentially dangerous, and emotionally erratic. But the series wisely devotes an entire episode to her backstory, and it completely reshapes the audience's understanding of the narrative. Josephine's past is revealed to be more tragic and deeply traumatic. She's endured a difficult upbringing and later had a child under extremely challenging circumstances. The supposed kidnapping is gradually revealed to be something very different. Milo is actually her child. The revelation that Josephine has been desperately trying to reclaim her son from the Irvines reframes the entire story and turns her from villain into tragic figure. Lillis delivers an emotionally complex performance, capturing both Josephine's fragility and her fierce determination. It is easily one of the strongest performances in the series. The supporting cast offers a mix of strong performances and somewhat underdeveloped storylines. Dakota Fanning appears here as Jenny Kaminsky, another mother whose child is friends with Milo. While Fanning is perfectly capable in the role, her character storyline, particularly the subplot involving her failing marriage, feels somewhat disconnected from the central narrative. Similarly, Jay Ellis delivers a solid performance here as Colin Dobbs, Marissa's business partner and confidant. One particularly impressive supporting performance comes from Daniel Monks as Brian Irvine, Peter's disabled younger brother. His role adds an additional layer of emotional depth to the Irvine family dynamic. It's also a good performance here from Abby Elliott, playing Leah Irvine, Peter's sister, who's a recovering drug addict. Meanwhile, Michael Pena plays Detective Alcaraz, the police officer investigating Milo's disappearance. Pena is always watchable, though the character sometimes feels written with excessive moral virtue, occasioning to the point of implausibility. where he's actually prepared to break the law to do what he deems is right, but therefore that makes him a corrupt police officer. Still, the episode focusing on Alcaraz and his family provides one of the series' more grounded emotional moments. Now, from a technical perspective, All Her Fault is very well produced. The cinematography emphasizes the sterile wealth of the Irvine's family world, large homes, quiet suburban streets, and pristine interiors that gradually become spaces of paranoia and suspicion. However, one element that may divide viewers is the score by Jeff Beal. While Beal is an accomplished composer, known for his work on political dramas and thrillers, the music in this series often feels overly intrusive. The score is frequently so dominant that it almost dictates how the viewer should feel in each scene. Over time, the audience may grow accustomed to it, but in early episodes, it can feel somewhat distracting and overly heavy-handed. The show is adapted from Andrea Mara's best-selling novel, All Her Fault, which was originally set in Ireland. One of the most notable changes is the adaptation is relocated to the United States, and the series places the action in Chicago, transforming the cultural context of the story while keeping the core narrative intact. Despite this shift, the themes of motherhood, guilt, class privilege, and moral ambiguity remain central to the story. The series also contains some interesting behind-the-scenes trivia details. Although the story takes place in Chicago, the show was actually filmed in Melbourne, specifically in the suburb of Elwood. Production designers carefully recreated American suburban environments in Australia, a common practice in modern television production. Several members of the cast, including Sarah Snook and Daniel Monks, are Australian, making the Melbourne filming location especially fitting. The series was also developed as a limited run from the start, meaning the story was always intended to conclude within a single season. One of the show's biggest strengths and potential weaknesses is its pacing. The early episodes move slowly, focusing heavily on character introductions and building the mystery. Some viewers may initially struggle to connect with the characters, many of whom appear unlikable or emotionally distant. But as the layers of deception are peeled away, the narrative becomes far more compelling. The final episodes deliver several major twists, and that dramatically recontextualize everything that came before. But by the time the truth is revealed, the story has evolved from a simple kidnapping mystery into disturbing exploration of obsession, privilege, and the lengths people will go to protect their version of the truth. All Her Fault may not be perfect. Its pacing is uneven, some subplots feel unnecessary, and the musical score can occasionally overwhelm the storytelling. But the series is elevated by strong performances, particularly from Lacey and Sofia Lillis, and a twist-driven narrative that keeps the audience guessing until the very end. What begins as a familiar thriller gradually becomes a darker and more tragic story about identity, motherhood, and moral compromise. All Her Fault gets an 8 out of 10. A slow burn mystery that rewards patience with a gripping and emotionally complicated conclusion. So what did you think of All Her Fault? Please let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.